Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere heavy, emotionally heavy, that is. Picture yourself 7 years old, tucked into a chair at the far end of a family barbecue. The potato salad's warm, no one passes you a soda, and the adults laugh at jokes that feel like coded messages you weren't meant to understand. You blink slowly. They're your people, but they're not your place. You're not the main character here. You're not even a side character. You're more like background furniture with a juice box. For 23 years, that's your role. Half invisible, half inconvenient. Birthdays go unanswered. Holidays get lost in the mail. Your name is something they say with a wrinkle in their brow, like they're trying to recall a password they never use. You're not cut off, not officially. You're the ghost who still gets the family newsletter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your city and your local time down in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's funny, historians still argue whether ostracism in ancient Rome was worse than exile. At least with exile, you knew where you stood. The Greeks had a whole system where your name got scratched into clay and boom, 10 years in the wilderness. Brutal? Sure. But honest. Unlike this slow civil family freeze-out where you're always invited just enough to stay hurt. Fun fact? In Victorian England, some families posed for portraits with missing relatives painted in afterward. You wonder if your family would do the same, paint you in, or quietly crop you out. You grow up learning to read the room before you read the books. You become fluent in micro-rejections, tight smiles, polite shrugs, the subtle art of being tolerated but not embraced. Family dinners are like walking through Versailles in socks, pretty, cold, and never meant for you to leave a mark. Then, one summer afternoon something snaps into place. Not violently. More like the quiet click of a puzzle piece that shows you the whole ugly picture. You're 29, sitting at a cafe with your cousin Jenna, one of the few relatives who still talks to you. She sips her latte like she's about to spill cream instead of secrets. Just so you know, she says, your name almost got left off the wedding invite list again. You blink. Again? Apparently the bride, the one who played princess with you at Grandma's house in 99, doesn't want too much drama. Code 4, she's not thrilled about your PTSD service dog. Historians still argue whether family reputation mattered more in feudal Japan or Victorian Britain, but one thing's certain. In both cases, the truth rarely made it to the tea table. The important part was how it looked. And you? You don't fit the aesthetic. Here's a weird historical tidbit. Some medieval courts had fools, whose job wasn't just to entertain but to speak the truth no one else could. And now, in this latte-fueled moment, you feel like the fool with all the facts and none of the welcome. You pet your dog under the table. She's warm, real, present. Everything your bloodline isn't. And it hits you. They don't want you there unless you're quiet, filtered and dog-free. You're a puzzle piece they keep trying to hammer into the wrong corner. You are SVP yes anyway. Not because you're desperate to be part of it, but because there's a sliver of you, the part that still remembers birthday banners and macaroni art, that hopes maybe this time will be different. Maybe they'll surprise you. Maybe they'll see you. Spoiler alert, they don't. 3 weeks before the wedding, you get the call. Not from the bride. Not even from your parents. It's Aunt Lori, whose entire personality is scented candles and passive aggression. We're so excited you're coming, she drawls. But just a heads up, there'll be lots of guests who aren't used to dogs. So, would you mind leaving yours at home? You stare at the phone like it just suggested you show up naked and offer everyone a foot rub. Paxier, your service dog. The one legally protected, medically essential, and emotionally intertwined with your sanity. You don't bring her to be cute. You bring her so you don't melt down in a crowd or spend the whole night trying to remember how to breathe. Historians still debate whether Nero actually fiddled while Rome burned, or if it was just political spin. But either way, your family's dancing dangerously close to the fire while pretending everything smells like roses. And here's the twist. It's not just discomfort. It's aesthetic. The venue has a look, and apparently dogs don't fit it. Not even well-trained, Life-saving ones with their own little bow tie. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because if you don't, you'll scream. And screaming hasn't gotten you anywhere for the last 23 years. So you hang up, stare at your dog's trusting eyes and start to plan. Not revenge, just adjustment. If they're so worried about appearances, fine. You'll give them a look they'll never forget. You start with the dress. Not some of the rag, blush-toned, forgettable frock. No, you hunt. You scroll through online boutiques at 2 de la madrugada, with your dog snoring at your feet. You message a local seamstress known for her theatrical flair, the kind of woman who once made a Civil War ball gown out of blackout curtains. You give her one instruction, make it unforgettable, and oh, she delivers. Imagine something between a gothic fairy tale and the empress of a forgotten empire. Deep emerald velvet, a dramatic train, a neckline sharp enough to file grievances. It makes you feel 10 feet tall, even before the boots. Yes, boots. Go on. Back in the 18th century, Marie Antoinette wore towering wigs stuffed with miniature ships, birds, even gardens, all to send political messages wrapped in fashion. Historians still argue whether she was making a statement or just flexing unchecked privilege. Either way, she knew. If they're going to stare, give them something to talk about. You add finishing touches with glee. Fingerless gloves. A cane. Not for mobility, but for drama. And your service dog? She gets her own outfit too. A jewel harness that sparkles just enough under dim lighting. It's tasteful, elegant, and screams, "Yes, I belong here." And frankly, more than you. You rehearse walking in the mirror, like you're preparing for battle. Which, in a way, you are. But instead of armor, you're wrapping yourself in self-respect. Instead of a sword, you wield presence. And as the day approaches, you're not nervous. You're calm. I see, even. You've spent years shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. Not this time. This time, you're bringing all of it. Loud, real, and gloriously inconvenient. The wedding day arrives with a thunderstorm brewing, both in the sky and in your gut. You pull up to the venue, a charming little vineyard that tries way too hard to look rustic. Twinkle lights, mason jars, chalkboard signs with romantic clichés that feel hollow on this particular day. You step out, boots crunching on gravel, velvet rippling like a tidal wave behind you. Guests turn. Not subtly, not discreetly. You're the punctuation mark in a sea of beige. One older aunt drops her canapé. Someone whispers something behind a manicured hand. You don't flinch. Not because it doesn't sting, but because you've learned how to walk with a wound. You pass the guestbook table. You don't sign it. Back in 1533, Anne Boleyn walked into her own coronation wearing an opulent ermine-trimmed cloak, while half the nobility refused to acknowledge her as queen. Historians still argue whether she truly believed she had won, or if she saw the writing on the wall. But she showed up, regal as ever, and forced every eye in the room to see her. You find your seat, or rather, your assigned seat, far back, near the catering tent, in full sun. Your service dog settles beside you, panting lightly. No one offers you water, no one greets you. Except for one child, maybe 6, who walks up and says, "You look like a witch princess." You smile, genuinely. "Thanks, I worked hard on it." The ceremony begins. The violins play. People cry. You watch, but not really. You're tracking movement. Your parents, your siblings. The people who said your service dog would ruin the aesthetic. And now they're the ones shifting in discomfort, pretending not to see you. Which is fine. Because you're done pretending you're not here. The reception slides into gear like a sitcom that's run one season too long. Predictable beats, forced laughter, predictable drama just waiting in the wings. You're seated at the table for family friends, code for, "We didn't know where else to put you." There's a guy next to you who talks about his car restoration business for 20 solid minutes, oblivious to your 1,000-yard stare. Your dog snoozes beside you, doing a better job of socializing than most people in the room. Back in the 1920s, the flapper era rewrote social rules at events like this. Women wore fringe and danced the Charleston, scandalizing elders while inventing freedom one hip shake at a time. Historians still argue whether it was rebellion or performative liberation. But either way, it was loud, visible, impossible to ignore. Kind of like your outfit. When you finally wander into the restroom, you overhear it. Two cousins. Whispering. Can you believe she showed up like that? I thought she wasn't even invited. You wait a bit, then exit the stall and wash your hands slowly, locking eyes in the mirror. The reflection scrambles to smile. You don't return it. Back at your table, you realize your name isn't even on the place card. It just says, Más uno. That's when it hits you. This entire invitation was a formality. They expected you wouldn't come. Or if you did, you'd shrink. You give your dog a piece of roast chicken under the table. He deserves it. He's earned his seat more than half these people. And you? You start to plan your next move. Because you've played polite. Now it's your turn to write the script. You step outside, away from the suffocating centerpieces and forced chair, into the cool dusk air. The lawn's freshly cut, and that earthy smell reminds you of summer nights as a kid, when you'd sneak out to sit under the stars just to escape the chaos inside. Your dog stretches beside you, his harness still snug against his shoulders, a quiet sentinel who needs no applause. You run your fingers over the tag on his collar, and suddenly you're in a different year, 2018, the VA paperwork, the waiting lists, the skeptical glances from people who thought PTSD was just drama, but he got you through it all. Speaking of drama, did you know that during the Victorian era, it was considered scandalous to walk your dog without gloves? Historians still argue whether that was about modesty or hygiene. But either way, you would have caused quite the stir with your service vest and combat boots. You check your phone. A new message blinks. It's from your uncle, the only one who didn't side-eye your entrance. You okay? It reads. You type back, still upright. You think about leaving. Just vanishing before cake cutting. And the drunken toasts. That will surely include a few digs about people who make everything about themselves. But then your dog rests his head on your boot like an anchor. You breathe in, out, and realize. You deserve to be seen. Not pitied. Not gawked at. Not erased behind a blurred name tag or whispered commentary. Just seen. And suddenly, an idea forms. It's bold. The kind of move that gets remembered, maybe even retold with a little scandal in the voice. The kind of move that says, I am not here to be tolerated. You smile. This wedding's about to get interesting. You push open the banquet hall doors again, letting the bass-heavy music thump back into your chest like a warning shot. The lights glitter overhead, catching on the sequence of dresses and the condensation on untouched champagne flutes. And there you are, back in it, not invisible this time. You scan the crowd and find the photographer, poor guys, trying to fade into the wallpaper with his camera. You march up to him and say, hey, mind getting a few shots of me and my +1? You gesture to your dog. His ears perk up. He's clearly more photogenic than most of the bridal party. You plant yourself dead center by the flower arch, strike a pose with full intention, and drape a sheer shawl across your shoulders like some gothic heiress. The dog sits proudly at your side, ears alert. The camera clicks. In ancient Roman weddings, guests used to pelt the couple with nuts instead of rice. It was seen as a fertility charm. Historians still debate whether that was romantic or just a low-key food fight with symbolism. You hear a cough, your mother. She's by the hors d'oeuvre, wine glass trembling ever so slightly, eyes locked on you like you're a museum exhibit that just moved. Your cousin whispers something to her, lips curling into a smirk. Someone else raises their phone, no doubt to record. You don't flinch. Instead, you blow a kiss toward the lens, and let the flash wash over you like a baptism. You're no longer background noise. You are the plot twist. For the first time in decades, the family table can't ignore you. They can't unsee what just walked in. And even if they'll later tell the story as that attention-seeking cousin, you'll know the truth. You finally gotta write your own headline. You drift toward the gift table, which is sagging under the weight of envelopes, lace-trimmed bags, and that one guest's suspiciously recycled wrapping paper. It's a curated corner of obligatory kindness. And yet somehow, it feels like the safest space in the whole room. Your dog nudges your ankle, right. You crouch to give him a pat, and for a moment, it's just the two of you again. Steady. Silent. Like trench soldiers at a party that's mistaken itself for a peace treaty. Okoron. Behind you, a waiter stumbles slightly. A tray clinks. You glance back and catch a glimpse of your brother, one of the few who didn't vanish completely after the diagnosis. He raises an eyebrow at your outfit, then mouths something that might be brave or bold. Hard to tell under the disco lights. In medieval France, brides carried garlic in their bouquets to ward off evil spirits. Historians still argue whether that was symbolic or just a polite way to tell people to back off. You run your fingers along the edge of a card with your cousin's name on it. She once tried to teach you how to braid a friendship bracelet, then ghosted you the summer after your first therapy stint. Poetic, in a disappointing sort of way. But the real punchline lands when the DJ calls everyone to the dance floor. The lights dim. The bride floats in beach praise. Applause. The groom follows, awkward but glowing. And somewhere in the back, a small voice, your aunt, maybe, whispers just loud enough. They really should have asked her not to come. You straighten your spine, smile, and whisper back, they really should have asked me why I left in the first place. The music swells. The night dances on. You step outside into the cool night air, the buzz of the party fading behind you like a bad memory you're trying not to relive. Your service dog pads quietly beside you, his steady presence grounding you amid the chaos you left inside. The stars are scattered like pinpricks above, indifferent witnesses to the tangled mess of family ties and past betrayals. You breathe deeply, feeling the weight of years pressing down, and yet with each inhale, a little more space opens up inside you. In ancient Rome, the Vestal Virgins tended sacred fires, believed to keep the city alive. Historians still debate whether their rituals symbolized purity or power. Tonight, you feel like a modern flame keeper, guarding your own light amid a world that tried to snuff it out. Your phone buzzes with a message from an old friend, someone who never judged your scars or your dog. Proud of you, it reads. Simple words, but they echo louder than any applause in that crowded hall. You look down at your reflection in a nearby window. Sharp eyes, a defiant smile. Your look, your choice, your story. You've made sure your presence is felt, not just tolerated. And as the night wraps around you, softer now, you realize, this isn't just about a wedding, or a dog, or even family. It's about reclaiming yourself, one breath, one step, one quiet victory at a time. The city hums gently, a lullaby for the wounded and the wise.